Hey everybody, and Merry Christmas! It's that time of year whenever we start making those Christmas treats. Both savory and sweet, they're all so good. And let me show you 3 of our family's favorite holiday treats. So come on along with me. My ponytail's gonna be going up because I'm gonna be cooking.
And today we're gonna be having some fun, making 3 of our family's favorite Christmas treats. And this video is in collab with Tamara from Southern Wife Everyday Life. Her channel and the playlist will be listed below, so let's get cooking.
Hello family and friends, I'm Susan and welcome to my home.
And for the first Christmas goodie, we are going to be doing the sausage balls. And I don't do it by the normal recipe. And I have evolved even since this one. Instead of 1 pound of sausage, I do 2. And instead of 1 hot and 1 regular, I do 2 hot sausages. 10 ounces of sharp cheddar cheese, 3 cups of bisquick mix, and a teaspoon of paprika. And there is a secret on how to get this all to incorporate so you can cook them in the oven and it makes them all good. So let me share that with you, and let's get to cooking some sausage balls. I have laid the sausage out so it has gotten warm to the touch, so it's easy to maneuver in my hands, as you can see. And I'm going to go ahead and put in the paprika and the cheese before I put in the bisquick. All right, and I need to put in 1 teaspoon of paprika, okay, 1 teaspoon of paprika. I'm going to go ahead and use my hands and mix that all into the sausage meat, which with this hot sausage, it's probably got a lot of paprika in it anyway, but it calls for it. I put it in. It just makes it really, really good. Okay. Now, 10 ounces of sharp shredded cheddar cheese, which I'm going to go ahead and pour that in next. And now the thing with this is you want to basically mush it in your hands and get it to blend into the sausage meat. That way it kind of melts the sausage a little more by the temperature of your body heat, and it incorporates the cheese into the mixture. There we go. And that looks pretty good. Everything is pretty well incorporated. I don't see a whole lot of bare just spots. So now it's time to add the last ingredient. Now the next thing I'm going to do is add in the bisquick. This is about 3 cups of bisquick mix. And what you do is basically the same thing that you did with the cheese. You sit there and you mash it into the sausage. Because the sausage has got nice and warm and some of the fat has started melting from the body heat from your hands and stuff, it will help incorporate the bisquick a little bit easier. And I just basically squeeze it into the sausage, and it does take a little bit of time to get this all incorporated because it is a dry ingredient and the sausage doesn't always want to accept it as easily as you would think. But I'm going to sit here and squeeze and mix until all of it is incorporated, and then I'll come back and I'll show you how I make my sausage balls, and we'll get them all in the oven and get them going because you know they are so good. Now let me show you the little trick I do to try to make all of my sausage balls the same size. I use a tablespoon, and I just basically go in and grab a bunch, bring it into the tablespoon, make sure it's maybe a heaping tablespoon, and then roll it in my hands and then put it in the pan. I do that for every one of them. That way you know they're about the same size and they're going to cook about the same time frame. And I just go around and do all the sausage balls like that to make sure I have about the same amount. And let me get all this done And then whenever I get completely all the way done, we'll come back and I'll show you what it looks like before I put it in the oven. And I have all the sausage balls rolled and laid out on the pans. One thing I figured out over doing this over the past couple years is you need to have a little bit of room in between each of the sausage balls. That way they get a little bit of brown in between each whenever it cooks. I've got both plates kind of layered to where they're separated apart. And I'm going to put them in the oven at 350, and it says for 15 to 20 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and put them in for 15 minutes and see where they're at, and then we'll come back and check and see if they needed that additional 5 minutes. At 15 minutes, and I'm going to flip them around in the oven, front to back, and then let them go another 5 minutes. And it's been 20 minutes, so I'm going to go ahead and take these out of the oven and let them cool off so we can go ahead and start eating some sausage balls. And here are the sausage balls already made. Don't worry if the bottoms get a little bit dunner than the tops, because that's fine. You don't want to overcook them. If you overcook them, they will be dry, and you want them nice and moist. And let's see if I can pull this apart. See? It's nice and moist on the inside. It's not dry. And it's so good. Definitely a family favorite around our house. Sausage balls. A family favorite holiday treat I make every year for Christmas. You've got to try them if you haven't already. They're so good. And let's make one of our family's favorites. Boiled cookies. A lot of people call them dookie wads. A lot of people call them peanut butter chocolate oatmeal cookies. It's whichever way you want to call them, they are good. And we're going to start with the ingredients. A stick of butter, 2 cups of sugar, 3 tablespoons of cocoa powder, a half cup of milk, and then the second phase, I'm going to be using 1 teaspoon of vanilla flavoring, 2.5 cups of raw oats, and 1/4 cup of peanut butter, and that is creamy peanut butter. The most important thing about these cookies is the order in which you put the second phase in. If you put it in incorrectly, it will not set up. I've learned that over the years, and now I've got it to where I can do it pretty good. So let's get going on heating up the pan and getting the butter and sugar and everything heated up. Now let me go ahead and put in the first phase, which is the salted butter. The whole stick goes in there to melt. And then I'm going to be adding in some sugar. Okay, and the butter is just about completely melted. I don't want it to brown, so let me go ahead and add the sugar in there. I'm going to go ahead and add the cocoa in, and the cold milk, and get that stirred together. This is what's going to make it good. Now, you do want to make sure that all the cocoa is stirred in and everything is incorporated, because you don't want clumps of cocoa in it. There we go. Now, with this recipe, it's a timing issue, and then it's a placement issue of the second phase, where you put each of the items and when you put them in. The timing issue comes whenever this starts to bubble and boil. And I am going to get a spatula so I can get this off the edges. And I have got this on about a medium heat right now. I've got it on about a 6. And as you see, it's starting to heat up. It's starting to bubble a little bit, which is what you want, because it's going to go quick once it does start to bubble. This is what you call a rolling boil. This is what you want. Whenever it starts to go to a rolling boil, then you need to start a timer for 1.5 minutes. So basically, kitchen timer, 90 seconds, and let it go. Just make sure you don't burn it. Like I said, I've got mine on 6, which is a medium heat, and it is doing a good rolling boil right now. And it needs to get hot enough to where whenever we add the rest of the ingredients, it cooks the oats. And that's what hardens it up, basically. So we've got it going. Now, whenever the rest of it comes to play, it comes quick and hard. I've got all my ingredients laid out and ready to roll once the second phase starts, because it is, like I said, quick and fast. We've got about 47 more seconds. Okay, 90 seconds is almost up. I'm going to go ahead and pour the teaspoon of vanilla because it's about to go off. 1 teaspoon of vanilla going in. And you'll see it sizzle a little bit. And I go ahead and stir that real quick. Now the next thing is the oats. Pour them in quickly and get them moved around inside of the hot fluid. And the reason you do the oats before you do the peanut butter is because if you put the peanut butter in, it will adhere to the outside of the oats and will not let the hot fluid into the oats to cook it, and it will not set up correctly. I learned that over years of doing this. Okay, here we go. And I need to take this off the heat, or turn the heat off, that is, and add the peanut butter in, right there. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and lift it off the heat, stir the peanut butter in, make sure it gets stirred, make sure it gets stirred really well. And if you do it correctly, it won't take long to start to set up once you take it off the heat. And you can see it's already starting to firm up a little bit. And I've gotten a layer of just aluminum foil laid out here, and I am going to place the cookies. I'm just using a gravy ladle of all things, but that seems to work best for my cookies, I think. Get a spoonful. You can make them as small or as large as you like, and then put them on the tin foil, and just keep doing this until all the cookies are on there. And then all you've got to do is let them cool down, and they should harden up, and they will thin out, they will flatten out usually whenever you put them on the tin foil. But I basically just lay them on there. Doesn't matter how pretty they are, they're going to be good to eat, so it doesn't matter. And I'm going to go ahead and do all of this, and I'll bring you back whenever I get all the cookies on the tin foil. And the cookies are completely laid out and ready to go. Let's move them around a little bit. There you go. We got a counter full of cookies now. We just got to let them cool and harden up. And whenever they harden, I'll show you, you'll be able to peel them off from the bottom of the aluminum foil. I guess the cookie sheets that you can get to put in the oven would work also. I just have always used the aluminum foil. So let's see. I'll probably give it about 30 minutes. Come back in and check and see if they've hardened up enough to remove them. If not, an hour. You know, because they do take a little time to cool off completely in the middle. If you try to take them off the tin foil too early, they'll break in half. But that's why we've got to make sure that they're completely cool. And this is how it looks for now. I'll bring you back whenever everything's ready. And this is how you know they're completely done. You lift up one side and the whole cookie comes up. That means they're hard enough that you can transfer them onto a plate, which I have right here, and display. Now, if you want to store them somewhere in a closed container, which is better because they will dry out if you leave them out, then putting them in a container and using wax paper in between the layers. That way the cookies do not stick to each other in between the layers whenever you put them in the container. And I'll show you how to do that also. But let me go ahead and get all the cookies in the plate. And here is the whole plate of boiled cookies. This is one run, and it does quite a few cookies. I usually do 3 or 4 runs for Christmas, just because we eat a lot of them, and I do give a lot out as gifts or with gifts as goodies. So here is the boiled cookies, and then let me show you how I store them to keep them fresh and not sticking to each other. When I go to store the cookies, I usually use, believe it or not, a plastic shoebox. And I put a layer of wax paper in the bottom, and then I put a layer of cookies. I try not to let them touch because they will stick together, and that's not a good thing. So I just put a layer down, just like this, until I get to the very end. Get as many in as I can without having them touch if possible. And then I flip the layer over just like that, and start the next layer in the dish. That way, none of the cookies are going to stick to each other. The plastic shoe boxes have a lid for them, and they will close. That way the cookies will not get dried out. And they usually hold about 2 runs of cookies. As you can see, I'm flipping it around again. And here we go. And I'm going to tear the wax paper off, pop the end in, and then you just put the lid right on top. And these are airtight shoe containers. I think I got them at like Dollar General for like $4 or $5 for a bunch of them. And this is what I put all of my goodies in at Christmas. That way, everything is in its own little container. You can see what it is. It transports easily from the kitchen counter to the bar to wherever. And people can just hop in, grab what they want, and then close it back up, and you know that it's going to be nice and airtight. But that's how I store my boiled cookies and my sausage balls that I made yesterday, and how I'm going to store the cookies I'm going to make tomorrow. So we'll see you back for the next phase of cookies. And let's get going on another holiday favorite. The Grandma Paul's Sandy Tarts, which we call Danish wedding cookies, is what we call it. What you're going to need is 2 sticks of butter. You're going to need 1/2 cup of confectioner's sugar. You're going to need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour, and some chopped pecans. And I'm going to go ahead and get the butter and the sugar combined in the mixing bowl with a hand mixer. And then we'll come back once I get it all done and get it mixed all together. So we've got the 2 sticks of softened butter. I'm going to put in the 1/2 cup of confectioner's sugar, and I've got plenty more to put on the outside of the cookies when we get done. And I'm going to go ahead and blend this together until it's smooth on low heat. So I'm going to go ahead and start it on low. And now it's looking pretty smooth. A little tip I can give you is if it gets stuck in your beaters, put it down in the bottom and turn it on a little bit higher, and you'll sling it off. That way you can get them cleaned out to some degree. Now the next thing I'm going to need is the vanilla. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Let me see. 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Alright. Now you are going to blend that in. And now it's time to add the 1 3/4 cup of all-purpose flour. And I'm going to be adding in the confectioner's sugar or the powdered sugar, 1 3/4 cup. And I'm going to add it in bits, a couple different bits. Blend in between, because I don't want it to be totally full of flour. Which it's going to be anyway, but not quite as bad, hopefully. Okay. I'm going to add the next little bit, and I need to scrape the sides down. And this is looking pretty good. It's loosened up quite a bit, and it's not going to be runny by no means. It's a cookie. And I'm going to get all the batter off. And then use the spatula to get the little bits off. Alright, now here we go. Now it's time to add 1 cup of chopped pecans that I'm going to add to this. And here is 1 cup of chopped pecans. And now I am just basically going to fold it in to the cookie dough. And this may take just a dab to get it all folded in. You want to make sure that there are no pieces of cookie dough that don't have pecan in them. You want to make sure that you've got them all dotted all over the place and no empty spots. So it's going to take me just a minute to get this done, and then I'll bring you back. Okay, let's get the cookies going now. What I've done is I've gotten some flour on my hands so they can not be as sticky. I get about a spoonful of the cookie dough and then I roll it. And now I make crescent shapes like that. And then put them over here on my parchment lined paper. And I do that for each one of the cookies. Basically get about a spoonful, then roll it, then make it a crescent shape, put it on the line. And I do that until every one of the cookies are made, and then I'll show you what they look like. Okay, and here is what the cookies look like once I lay them out on the sheet before I put them in the oven. You're going to cook them at 270 degrees for 40 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and get these in the oven and cooking. 40 minutes later, I'll bring you back and show you how I put all the sugar on them. And these have been baking for 40 minutes, and they are done. You just got to let them cool and they'll firm up. But you need to, before they get completely cooled off, run them through the convection sugar. So let me let this cool just a little bit until I can physically pop them off without them breaking. And then we'll get them through the sugar, and then they'll be done. And when the cookies get to where they're cool enough that you can handle them and they don't break apart, you want to put them in the powdered sugar. Put them on bottom, on top. Don't press on them because they will fall apart at this point because they're still hot. And then put them in your lined container, just like I did with the bowl cookies yesterday. And I'm going to keep doing this with each of the cookies. Just get a little bit of powdered sugar over top of them. You don't have to press it down. You don't really have to shake it off either, because it will come off. And you need to do it quickly once they start cooling, because the sugar will not adhere to the cookie once it's completely cooled. So I'm just going to run through these real quick. Yep, and that one broke. Like I said, you got to be careful because they will break. They're still very fragile. And now, I'm ready to do like I did yesterday and pull the layer over. And then get the next layer on top. That way they don't stick to each other. And all of my cookies are safely stored away in the shoebox, like I showed you how I do my chocolate boiled cookies, with a lid on them. So they'll stay fresh, and we can see what's in it, and you can see how many, and somebody can get whatever they want out of here and then close it back up. This is my favorite holiday treat. I love them. They are a labor of love, but I love them so much. And that's the last of the 3 recipes for the Holiday Treats collab. I hope you've enjoyed these 3 holiday family favorite treats. And please visit Tamara's channel and take a moment to watch the playlist on the Christmas treats. Lots of good ideas. Please like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram or Pinterest, and ring that bell so you don't miss any of the upcoming videos.